Welcome to our next in our series of videos for our Recreation, Sport and Society with a focus on business course. Today we're very fortunate to have Lee Genier with us. He's the Senior Vice President and in charge of business development with the Canadian Football League's Calgary Stampeders. Lee, really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
I want to talk with you firstly a little bit about you and your past and your background that led you into this executive role with the Stampeders.
Well, I've been with the Stampeders for 17 years. Previously, I graduated from Mount Royal back in 1992. I used to run a whitewater rafting company. Leading into that, it was the largest whitewater rafting company in Western Canada, which was probably the best business training I had.
Mm-hmm.
Got to do a lot of, dip your fingers in a lot of different areas of business. I used to have a software business as well. So when you look at 17 years, it took me almost back to university.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the Stampeders has been my life.
Yeah. The role as Senior VP for Business Development, what all does that encompass? What are you responsible for here, Lee, on a day-to-day basis?
Well, when you look at that, it's the business side of the Stampeders. And when I talk about, any sports team, there's obviously there's, whether it be football, hockey, there's the sports side of it, and there's the business side.
Mm-hmm.
And that entitles everything from marketing your product, being in the community, your ticket sales, your partnerships in the community, and your game day experience. So all of that, and a little bit of accounting in there as well, because we go out and like any business, we don't want to lose money.
No.
So we go out and we make sure that we do everything right as a business and entertain our fans.
In this setting where you look at professional football in the Canadian Football League, you play 18 times a year, regular season, only 9 home games and a preseason game in there, and hopefully a playoff game, and once every 8 or so years you get the Grey Cup, but not a lot of actual game nights. So the 10 or 11 that you have over the course of the season, boy, a lot must go into making sure that those are bang on and everything runs as perfectly as it possibly can.
Well, you look at a production of a game, and there's probably 600 people that are involved in the production of a game day. That involves everyone from our parking attendants, our concessions, from our game day volunteers to our staff that put on, and it's truly an event, right? You're holding an event for 35,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you name it, it covers it off. So, and you're really looking at a 6-hour an event on any, we're going to say every couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit, Lee, about the structure of the Stampeders organization and maybe compare it to some of the other CFL franchises that you're familiar with in terms of the model of ownership groups and the shape that they take, whether it be individual owners or group of people? I know the CFL is a little bit interesting that in an 18 league, there's actually an individual responsible for 2 of the teams, but maybe talk about it and what those structures usually look like top down within each organization.
Well, mostly, you look at our structure, and we have a group of ownership. From Calgary, you have a lot of oil guys in there. Calgary Flames are part owner. Doug Mitchell, John Frazani. So you look at the lineage there of ownership, very deep in business, but very community oriented. Mm-hmm. You look at the Edmonton Eskimos, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, community-owned teams. And there are some teams that are individually owned in the CFL, but when you look at it, each team is part of the community. Right? The Stampeders are much bigger than anyone here. It's bigger than myself. It's bigger than Henry Burris. It's part of the community. Sure. So when you look at that structure, this team existed long before I was here, and will exist long after I'm here. But at the top of your organization, you have a president, Lyle Bauer. We have an executive, myself, and Stan Schwartz, that directs the day-to-day operations of this organization. And of course, we have a marketing department, sponsorship, game day, accounting, that brings, and our corporate partnerships, right, that all make up the business side of the Stampeders. So that's very on the business side. And of course, on our football side, John Huffnagel is our general manager. That he makes all the football decisions. Mm-hmm. So our player trades, salaries, you name it, and obviously with our salary cap and our salary management system comes into play with making decisions on players and your game roster.
how often do those two sides, Lee, overlap? How often does the upper management on the business side sit down with John Huffnagel and the key players on the football side, and you guys make sure everything's all meshing, or is that just kind of left to once or twice a year sort of thing, and you're responsible for each department?
No, at the end of the day, like I said, we're a business, and of course John Huffnagel runs our football, and it's a day ongoing process. I mean, it's every day. Obviously, there's budgets, you name it. Like I say, we don't. John reports to executive, the committee, the ownership that on football decisions. But at the end of the day, we are a business. So, I mean, he will meet with us every day, and we'll go and sit in his office and talk about the issues that arise. And every day there's issues arise, whether it be on budgets and injuries, because that all affects your day-to-day progress. So, very closely.
For sure. And I think it's particularly helpful for our students, to wrap their head around the business side of sports. And certainly you have, and talk about the last 17 years that you've been in this position with the Stampeders, but a lot of our students and their friends and parents and stuff, they sit down and the game starts at 7. Whether they show up at the stadium or they put it on television and watch the game, it's about those 3 hours and the actual on-field product. But when you talk about the 600 or so people that are helping you out on a typical game day, a lot goes into it. Nextly, I want to chat with you about the relationship that you as a member franchise have with the league, and in this case it's the Canadian Football League, and what that dynamic looks like, and how accountable you must be to practices and policies that they set in place.
Well, absolutely. Being a member club, I mean, there's your 8 board of governors that meet with our Commissioner Mark Cohan, that, hey, you set out your rules and regulations, and at the end of the day, all the teams, like again, are trying to fill their stadiums, that play within the guidelines, and make every city successful. And as a league, we've grown tremendously, and that's kind of the goal, is to, hey, keep growing our league, growing our TV numbers, growing our in-stadium audiences, because talking about your product, and how do we improve our product. So it's all about that. It's really, again, when you talk about the CFL, it's the 8 clubs, right? And how do we, you talk about expansion into Maritimes, you talk about Quebec, you talk about Ottawa, and I mean, it's about growing your league. Mm-hmm. So, and again, expanding that reach into all parts of Canada.
Mm-hmm. Let's focus a little bit in on marketing and what all goes into it. And here you guys are based out of Calgary, so really everything. Red Deer is probably a battleground. You in Edmonton, and there's Stampeder fans, of course, all throughout North America and beyond. But when you put your marketing plan in place, what are some of the key principles behind it?
Well, this year, I mean, we've taken a very strategic approach that we are Southern Alberta's team. So, from Red Deer south to the border, and we have done caravans where we take our players and we do a community reach, going all over Southern Alberta. Because, like I say, it's Alberta, and of course north of, and we have a lot of fans north of Red Deer. But we go out and try to engage the communities, because again, people want to engage with our players, with our coaches, and hey, we do a great job of going out there and touching all parts of the community. Mm-hmm. So, talk about marketing is, again, when you go out, you're selling an experience to the fans, and when the fans come here, it's all a part of it. Which led into this year with our Game Face campaign. It's about engaging the fans, right? It's really bringing them, bringing them to the stadium to be part of it. Right. So that's a big part of it, because without our fans, we're nothing. So,
how's it changed? You talk about being in this position over 17 years. How's that, dynamic and kind of when you put together your marketing plan with the rest of your team? Has the football fan changed? How much harder has it been to attract the entertainment dollar, maybe in the past couple of years, as opposed to how it was about a decade ago?
Well, if you look at Calgary, I mean, it's becoming a very diverse city. So, I mean, you're trying to appeal to all different markets. Mm-hmm. So you are fighting for the entertainment dollar, because on a Friday night or a Saturday night, whether families are going to a movie, whether they're going to a festival, and you're saying, hey, come to our stadium. So it is more challenging every year, because I get the question is, okay, you've been around for 66 years, how come you're not sold out every game. Because people make choices, right? It's great product, but again, our game schedule varies every week, so it's about promoting when our games are, our game times, and themes of our games as well, right? And obviously you have to play into your rivals, right? When the Riders come to town, we have generally full stadium. Eskimos come to town, full stadium. So that's a big part of it, right? When the Leafs play Montreal, full stadiums, right? Or Boston, and the rivalries are something that makes sports great. Right? So you have to take that certainly into the equation and markedly accordingly. Because of course we're coming up to our Labor Day Classic, which one of the arguably the largest sporting event in Canadian sports.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about with us here, Lee, the media and the relationship you have with the media, and one piece of competition to putting people in your stadium, the fact that games are available on television, and blackouts is a part of it, and maybe to touch on how that works in your relationship. But now with TSN, each and every Canadian Football League is on that network. And on a beautiful night, like you say, nothing beats that experience of being in a stadium. But if it's 8 or 9 degrees and it's pretty wet out and the wind's howling, all of a sudden the couch can look like an attractive option. So talk about that relationship and how the media really can be an important ally for much of the time, but at the same time there's a challenge there that exists too.
Absolutely, because when everyone goes home, everybody in their house has a 60-inch plasma. High def, there's just a great spot to watch a game. So it is one of the competing factors that we look in when we put on our games. Is okay so we want to make sure that our experience is second to none when you come to our stadium. I love to watch games on TV, right? And if it's minus 30, like when we played the Riders last year, but we had a sold out stadium. So it's we rely on the media. We try to do the best job that we can to make sure that we present ourselves in the media, from our community partnerships to our experience in game, right? But so we rely on the media a great deal to promote, to help us promote our games, because we're part of that community, and you can't buy that experience of being in the game when the Stamps beat the Riders.
And that relationship with the media, too, I would assume has evolved over recent years, especially with the advent of social media. And you look what's available nowadays with Facebook and Twitter, and things are constantly changing. How has the Stampeders embraced social media, and how are you using that to your advantage?
Well, that's a huge part of our marketing, right? I mean, you look from what we do on Twitter, what we do on Facebook, what we do from our email blasts to our fans, because you're reaching an entirely different group of your target market by these different mediums. So we employ that, and we spend probably 25% of our energy into the social media. One, because you can reach so many people. If you looked at the front of the Calgary Herald today, you saw an issue we had, right? That it's once something goes viral, it's very effective, whether it be positive or negative, right? So it's something that we've embraced, and that has been a complete evolution from when I've started. That everything is instant, and it's where people live now, right? It's people, if they're in front of their computer, they're going to get the information on whatever they're looking at.
Good answer. Last one for you, Lee. Our students that are taking the course, some of them, their football or volleyball or hockey careers in high school, maybe winding down, dancers, soccer, whatever they've been involved in with their personal athletics, and they're saying, you know what, this has been an interesting course, and potentially getting involved in sports business, that sounds exciting. What a wonderful way to have to wake up every day and go to something called work. That's something I really love being around. What would you say to those students that are potentially considering a career in sports business, what they should be doing now to plan, prepare, and possibly set them up one day to work in this field?
Well, let me start off by, after 17 years, I absolutely love coming to work in the mornings, right? I have a very regimented. I grab my coffee in the morning. I come to work, and being part of that is being very well versed in all aspects. So obviously, in my role from marketing, our media respects, but you're part of the team. You're a face of the team wherever you are, right? So it's the more that you learn in your time, whether it be in media relations, marketing, sales, operations, it's all a benefit, right? So the best advice that I'd have to the students going through any program is get out there. We have some great internships that we do, is be part of the team, and there's nothing like real world experience, especially in sports, because it is such a dynamic business that changes. Hey, 1 week you're high, 1 week you lose, and 1 week you're low. And does it affect you? Absolutely, right? So it's but at the end of the day, you are a business, and you're putting on a great entertainment package, right? Because you can never control what happens on the field. So take that into business and understand that everything you do leading up to that, and more experience you have, is going to be more of an asset to you as well.
Excellent information. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.